Good afternoon. Hi, my name is Michelle Dutrissa and I'm an independent demonstrator from Stamping Up. I'm really pleased that you're able to join me today. Please jump on and let me know where you're from and say hi, because it's always great to chat with people. Now, let me just show my face while I'm talking. Sorry, I was still playing around and putting things together for this today. So, again, let me say hello. My name is Michelle and love having you here. Now, I will try to get this onto my blog in the next few days. If I don't, I do apologise. I've just been very busy lately with my alterations business. So that's been keeping me busy. Okay, so let me get back and I'm going to turn this back down to my desk view because I do want to show you a couple of things as we get started, because as you know, I'm creating an album and we've created this from scratch. So last week we had part 1, which is up on YouTube at the moment if you need to catch up. Hi, Glenda. How are you? I have got to apologise to you, Glenda. A few weeks back, a long time ago, I was meant to send you a card and I waited for your message and never got it. And then the other day, someone left me a message on that video and I went back and there was your address details. So I don't have that original card, but I do have another special card for you and a little gift coming your way. It will be going in the mail very soon. So I do apologize, Glenda. Okay, so let me get this started and pop this down to my desk view. Okay then. So last week what we made was our basis for our book. Now there are a couple of things I need to run through with you on this. When we were putting this together, we put a separation between our spine and our covers. Now I probably should have, or let's just say, hi Deborah, how are you? Let's just say I should have separated the distance between my spine and my covers a little bit more, because this is what can happen. I suppose this is good because it does show you what can happen. I don't know whether you can see, but very lightly there, where my hinges are or my joints there are on the side, my joints there have cracked. It hasn't cracked all the way through. Remember when I was saying last week, you just want to be able to put a crease line in there and then very gently ease this up, so then your paper gets used to or stretches, the fibers break down a little bit. Well, I didn't leave enough of a gap and my fibers have actually just ripped. What I have done is I have put a little bit of glue on those areas there and then use my embossing buddy to take away the tackiness of the glue. And unfortunately, I don't think it's come up as well as what I would have liked. But we are going to come up with a way of hiding them or not showing them as much. So, oh, you're not working today? Oh, I'm glad. I'd hate to think I was keeping you away from your job. So that's just one thing that you do need to be aware of. And even though I was trying to space this with 2 thicknesses of my chipboard apart, it probably could have been another 1 to 2 thicknesses apart. So you're probably better, you don't want to be too far apart, but you're probably better off being further apart than closer together. So at least with that happening, you can see what can happen and what you need to be aware of when making one of these. So today what we're going to do is we're going to look at our pages. Now I'm just noticing here my adhesive in some of these areas here hasn't really adhered as well. So I'm just going to give that a little bit of an extra rub down in between each of those, just to make sure, because that's what, once we put our pages on here, these hinges have to really hold, because this is going to get quite heavy. Unfortunately, there is another product in England that you can use for these books in making a similar sort of thing, but slightly different, and unfortunately I can't buy it here in Australia, and it's too expensive to order and get it. Well, the product's not expensive, the postage is too expensive to get it here in Australia for me. So we're just making do with what we've got here, which is fine. I'm just going to give that all a really good adhesion there. Okay, so let's start making our pages. So I'm going to pop that to one side and not play with that anymore. And let's have a look. Now, I've been making some templates of just some page ideas. Now, this is the basis of our page. And what it is, it's basically a tube. And what I've done is when we worked out our measurements last week for our album, and we were working out the size of our page and everything, I decided my page was going to be 4.5 inches deep. So what I've cut this is 9.5 inches, and I'll show it all to you in a minute, by the depth we want of our page, or the width we want our page across. So I've changed my mind a little bit from the measurements I mentioned last week. And when these pages go in, the reason why it's a hollow in there is because that's going to fit over the top of one of those hinges and be adhered either side. That's why we've put our tear and tape either side of those hinges. Now this end is going to stay open, so it becomes a pocket, and that's going to glue down. Now the other thing I was thinking, how am I going to, if this is going to be a pocket and I'm going to be putting a tag or a page in there that can be pulled out, this page needs to be slightly narrower. So I've done this at 4.25 wide. But depending on how you want to be able to access this page, you can access it by using a punch and cutting a little half circle. You could have this coming out a little bit further past, but I've still got this punch here, because I love this tag, so it's one of the punches I have kept. This was a Stampin' Up one, and I'm going to use this to make some tags to put on here. So when I make my tag to put on there, those tags are going to sit out a little bit. So that may come to the end of my pocket, but my tag, and I've got one here already punched. So let's just grab this, and we're going to grab my makeup one. And just for the purpose of this, I'm going to use my tearing tape. You can use your tearing tape to do this, or you can use your multi-purpose glue. You want something that's not going to be coming out too much. And I'm just going to put just a little bit of glue, tearing tape on either side of this. I'm not too worried about this piece because it is just to show you what I'm talking about. So if we pop this onto here, and I'm just going to eyeball this at half, about there. When that fits in there, that's going to be sticking out around about, let me just move that out of the road so you can see, around about that much. So we want these pages to sit in here and allow that. And I didn't want that to be coming out. It's very hard to see here on a black on black. Let's pop that underneath. There's the edge of my album. I've lined that up. So when that is like that, I didn't want those coming right out. So I've ended up making this not quite as wide as what I thought. If you were just going to punch out a half circle here, then you could have this going quite a bit wider if you weren't going to put on one of these tabs. So this is just to explain to you, this is the basis of our page. And this is the pocket that I've made. Now, I've also made this, as I said before, 1/4 inch narrower, but I've made it 1/2 inch shorter on this side because these tabs are about 1/2 inch deep. So they're going to come in to around about there. So it's going to stop this. It's going to become like a stopper and stop this from going too far in. So that is the basis of our page, and then we can add things onto this page. Now, some of the things that I have made just to show you. Now, it is easier to put this together at this point. I need to make up 5 of these, and then you can add bits and pieces onto your page. But it's all, some of these things can be added on afterwards, like some of the pockets and things. You can put your pages into your albums, and then as you're working out what photos and everything you're going to need, you could add some of these bits and pieces on it, and I will try to explain that as we go along. So this is the first one I've made. So again, I've made my basis pocket here, and then I've made a flap that sits on the top. Now you can have this at whatever length, and I am thinking of maybe shortening this a little bit. So it's the same size as my pocket, which is 4.5 by 6 3/8 of an inch. And I've added an extra 1/2 inch on one side, and that's for my tab. So I've added my tab down there. Now, you've got to think about this when you do this type of page. When that goes into there, if you have your, okay, let me just pop this on. If you have your page there and this opening here, it's going to be opening onto your other pages you have in here. The other way you could do it is have this with your page and opening outwards. Okay, so you can go either way, but you just got to think about what you're going to be putting, so what photos you're going to be using and how you're going to be opening this up. Now, I'm not going to be necessarily using all these page styles, because really you only want 1 or 2 different styles, and you just you start off by having style 1, 2, then you might go a third one, and then 1, 2 again. You know, you sort of, or you could do all different if you want, but you wouldn't go, if you had style 1, you wouldn't go style 1, 1, then 2, 2. I mean, again, it all does boil down to what photos you're planning to use. I haven't chosen what photos. I've decided this album is going to be a gift for my mum. I've decided on what designer series paper I'm using. So, but I haven't decided on my photos. So I'm sort of trying to leave myself with a few options here. So you've got to think about which way you want this page to open, but that's one style. You could shorten this. You could shorten it to wherever you want. You could have a half one. So you could cut this down. So you could, if I just fold this back on itself, you could have a page that opens up like that. You could even leave that with that there and have a page that has a fold out like that. Just remember that you'd have to make sure that creases really well because of how that's flicking back up. And whatever you put on the inside here is going to make that more bulky. So you've got to think about what you're going to be doing and how you're going to be using it and what page, what photos and things you're going to pop in there. Another style of page you could do, again, we've got the same tube type main part of our page, but I've made a pocket here where you could put tags. So this one here, I've got a pocket along the bottom. And on the other side, what I've done just to show you is I've put a pocket on the side, and you could make this pocket deeper or just use it half, and then you can pop memorabilia in there, you can pop tags in there and other photos in there as well. And this is another one I like. Again, it's just got my basic page, and then I have my join at the top, and that flaps up like that. Now, the only thing with this sort of one here, if you're looking at what sort of photos to put on here, now I did put some photos here on my desk somewhere. Here they are. If you're going to have a photo like that and that coming down, it doesn't look very nice. So whatever photo you want to pop inside there, you need to be able to cut it down so it's hidden away in there. And luckily this photo, if I decided to use it, I could trim down either side, but I might look for a photo that's a little bit more appropriate, because I mean, you don't really want to take away sometimes too much of what's in the background. You want to keep things proportionate. Again, if you could, whatever you put on top, if you're going to put a photo there, you could cut that down to fit in there. I'm actually decided to use a range of a designer series paper that has been long gone, and it's this one here. And what was this one called? This was called Hand Penned, and it was one of my favorites. And I was thinking this morning, what photos am I going to use? Because I originally was thinking of using Hues of Happiness, but a lot of the photos, because this is going to be an album now for my mother, a lot of the photos I'm going to be using could be black and white, and this does look very nice with black and white photos because I have used it. I also still have the Memories and More cards that came with this. So the reason why I'm showing you this is I have in here a piece that I had cut down for a card that I did when this came out. And what I could do if I wanted to is take a card, a Memories and More card, or even a piece of designer series paper, and mount that in there. Now I could put a bit of matting behind it. I can make it a bit smaller if I wanted to make it smaller. So if I wanted to add one of these, you know, you could cut this down just to a bit wider than that. And then you could position it. You could position it further this way, further that way, but you can build up on your pages. So pockets like this one, pockets like these ones here, you could add as you're building your pages after you've put pages into the album. So I hope I've explained that to you well enough. I hope you understand what I'm coming from. So let's just start working on these pages and getting them made. Pop all these to one side, but at least now I've decided on my designer series paper, and it's a good way of getting or using up some of these papers that you still might have lying around and not quite sure what to do with. So I've gone through what I've got here, and I think that I'm going to be pretty close to doing what I want to do. I may have to, because I've cut a whole lot down and I've only got these pieces in this size, so I may have to play around with a few bits and pieces, but at least now I've got an idea of what paper I want. Just got to work out my photos. It is lovely DSP. I really loved playing with that particular one. I just think some of the colors we've got now, I was thinking of a couple of the new papers for this album, but they're not quite my mum, you know, and not quite right for the black and white photos that I know I've got. So hi Joan, how are you? So let me go through and let's work on these pages. So I've already cut a lot of them out, so I'm just going to go back to our basics. So this is our basic page and our basic insert to go into there in our page. The only one that we're going to have to, I really want to put together today is this one here and put this into my book. But I think I'm going to be opening mine going that way. And another reason why, if you open it up that way, you would need to use tabs, something similar to this, is you don't want to cut a hole through that hinge. But we'll come to that in a minute. So these pages here. So what I've done, just to keep today nice and sweet, I've already started by cutting my cardstock. And I have cut, so my page is 4.5 by 6 3/8 of an inch. I've cut my basic black cardstock into 6 3/8 by 9.5. And I've already scored it as well. I've made one, so I've still got 4 more to do. So I've scored it at 4.5 and then at 9, and it's left me here with a 1-inch tab on the bottom. And I've done that on all of my other 4 pages. So now I'm just going to grab that trusty tear and tape again. And I'm going to just fold these, and I'm going to pop my tearing tape along the bottom. So we're going to do that to each one of these. So I'm just going to actually give these all a rough fold, and I'll burnish them in a moment. Whoops, my page is moving all over the place. So I hope you've all had a lovely week. It's been pretty windy here up in the Southern Highlands. We had one day that earlier this week that it was so windy in the morning. They were sort of saying that had to make sure things were tied down, and then I heard that we've had a bit of snow up in the mountains. So that explains all the wind we're getting here. So let's just pop our tearing tape on. Even though we're sort of a few hours away from Kosciuszko and that, if there is any wind or blizzards or snow, we will generally get the cold of it down here. But it was very windy the other day. So we're just going to quickly run that tape along the bottom there. And then we're just going to grab our snips, and we're going to angle each one of these off, and just gives you a much neater finish. And I like to angle it after I've put my tearing tape, because then I don't have that little bit of adhesive sticking past those edges on my tabs. Now I've used 1/2 inch for my tabs. You could use 1 centimetre. As I said last week, I generally will just naturally revert back to inches when I'm doing anything to do with scrapbooking. Get rid of all of that. We're going to take our backing off that, fold that up and press that down. Now the area down here where we've got our join, that is going to become the bottom of my page. So that's the bottom and that's the top. So when I'm just going to pop them up there with my bottoms towards me, and have my, so we have the top at the top, and that will hopefully keep these all going like that. So I've got my join down there at the bottom. You do want to try to make sure that you get those edges lined up nicely. You could give those all a burnish, which I will do in a minute, just to make sure that those folds are nice and crisp. Okay, and there's one I've already done, and there's the join there. So I've got my join, the bottom, at the bottom, the bottom, at the bottom. So now I'm just going to give these all just a really good burnish. Now there's showing you those page ideas. There are lots of page ideas out there. It's just a matter of having a look at other tutorials. Just checking where my bottoms are because I'm changing them, and I want the tab part to be on the back page. So there's my tab. No, the tab's going to be on the front part. It doesn't really matter. It's just me being a little bit pedantic here. But I do like to have my join at the bottom. Then always your album will look nice from the top down. Okay. So there's my pages. So that's my basics of my pages. And then I've already cut my tags to go inside them. I've cut a few of these tabs. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I need a 5th one of those. Now here you need to decide on with these whether you want to put your tag on there and then have your designer series paper. Where did I pop that? You'd think that I would just know exactly where I put it. But I want one of these. This will be just quick and easy because I already cut to size. This is one of the Memories and More cards. I went through these and it's got some really nice sayings on some of these, so they'll be really good for this. But you can either pop that onto there beforehand. We fold that. So then that goes over the top. Or you can have that coming over the top that way. I like to have it underneath. So I'm going to pop all these on now. And I'm going to use my multi-purpose glue for this. Now, what I do want to do, so there is a little bit of thinking in this when you're putting these together. What I do want to do is just mark these all at halfway. So that's 4 1/4, so that's 2 1/8 on each one. That pencil marker is going to get covered up. Sometimes my fingers just don't want to work. So what's everybody doing this weekend? You're the same at Falls Creek. If the wind is freezing, then it's snowing on the mountain area. Yeah, we're a long way from all of that sort of stuff, but we just get it straight down here. And it just seems like we've got an early winter happening as well. I don't know what everybody else feels, but well, we usually say here in the Southern Highlands that come Anzac Day, it's the first day we sort of wear, we start putting our jumpers on. Mind you, I have known it to be warmish on Anzac Day as well, but it just seems to be that this year it's sort of even hit before Anzac Day that we were all of a sudden cold. Now I'm just eyeballing this a little bit because I know it's not going to be 100% correct, but I just want all of these to be the same. Now you could variegate your tabs all the way up. But I'm going to pop all my tags. I just want to put it on that side more so than that one. I am going to keep them all at the same level. Just going to give this a little bit of a, yeah, I've got that pretty right. It's about 3.5 centimeters. Okay, so there's my first one. Fold all these in half. I wish I'd never got rid of this tag punch. It's a really nice tag punch. It's a lovely shape. So who likes the new catalogue? Who has got a favourite suite or a favourite stamp set? Now I know that's about 3.5. I can sort of course, you could use one of your Seal Plus to do this. Another idea, if you don't want to use tags, you could also punch a hole and put a bit of ribbon in there, especially if it's one for a younger person. That can always look fun, especially if you, even if you want to do a shabby type album, having ribbon or lace and things like that to form your tab is always good. I'm not worrying too much about getting that bit of glue there because I am going to be covering these up. And we're up to our last one. Now, has anyone else ever made an album like this? Do you like making albums? Is it something that you've been interested in doing and just haven't done before? Okay, so there's all our tags to go in. Now I've decided with these I might put photos on one side, and then on the other side what I want to do is leave an area for journaling. So I've cut all this basic white and I've just cut it about 1/4 of an inch smaller so that can all fit in there. But I was also, when I was going through these, as I said, I've only just decided to use these have also got areas for journaling. So I could even use some of these. So my original idea was I was going to adhere these down, but I think for the moment I'm going to leave these until I've decided exactly what I want to do with these memories and more cards. So we'll pop those to one side also with our tags. So now we have our page bases, we've got our tags to go in, and we've still yet to decide on what we're going to do with those. So we might be covering this next week when we do our decorating of our album. So we're going to go back to our basic pages, and I'm going to take the first one. Now, one of the ones that I did want to do is this one here that opens out. I'm not going to do mine with a fold, and I'm not going to cut it smaller. Again, remember, if you do cut it smaller, you don't want to have a photo that's going to come out there. You might put a little 2x3 photo into there. And then I found this when I was sort of cleaning up this morning and looking. It's just giving me an idea. This has also been discontinued, but it's a nice little piece that you could use for a bit of ephemera. So if you wanted, you could make up something like that and pop that on there with a tag, and then you could write on the inside in there what that tag all means, or give it to the person who the album is for and let them doing it. I'm actually going to put some photos into my album, for my mum. I'm going to go through my collection of photos of her throughout the years. Some I've got from her engagement to my dad right up till now. But I'm going to leave the journaling part up to her so she can write in it the memories that she has of those times. It's her 80th birthday this year, so I just thought this is going to make a really nice gift for her. So that is the plan, and hopefully we get it all done. So I want to make up maybe at least 2 pages like this one here, and I've already cut it. So it's the same size as our front of our page, which is 6 3/8 by 4.5, but I've added an extra 1/2 inch onto one side. So I've already pre-cut these. So I've got 2 of them here. So that's 6 3/8 by 4.5, and I've added that 1/2 inch. So I'm just going to burnish those. Fold them and burnish them, and then we're going to add some more tear and tape on here. Now I've got to think where we're going to add this tearing tape. It goes onto that fold. So it's actually going onto the part that's going to fold down. And again with these, I'm going to cut these parts here at an angle because it keeps them all looking nice and tidy. And then hopefully when I put whatever embellishments that on, or the designer series paper, it will cover a lot of this up. But even if it doesn't, we want this to look as tidy as possible. So with this page here, now there's my join there at the bottom. So that's going to be the front side of my page. If I can put my join on there, which means that that's going to be opening away. So my hinge is going to be here, opening away from it. Now, the other thing I was thinking is actually, because I've made this exactly the same size. No, I haven't. Oh, I've done something wrong here, but that's okay because I was going to trim this down anyway. And that may, and I want to trim this down to so that's my page. And what did I say that was? Not long enough ruler. Where did I put that long one? I clean my desk and I put things away. I put things away and I can't find them. If I left my desk a mess, I might have found them. Who else has the same problem? Okay, so that was 6, and I actually made that a bit narrower, 6 5/8. Why? No, 6 3/8. Why did I make that different? Yeah, 6 3/8. That's what I said. And then I've cut this. Oh, I cut this a little bit short, but as I said, that's okay because I want to make it shorter. So if I'm going to make this shorter, that's 6 3/8. I want to make it shorter by probably 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to make this shorter. I've just got to work this out. Sorry, folks. By another 1/2 inch. So I just want to cut 1/2 an inch off each one of these. Don't want to make it look too like, you want to make what I'm going to trim it off down to look like it's meant to be, rather than just, I took the measurement a little bit wrong, but I also didn't want it exactly the same size. So there's my page. Yep, I wanted that just that little bit smaller. So I could go that way, or I could have that coming and opening that way. But I think that's going to be interfering with our hinge. So I'm going to have it going over here. But the other thing I do want to do is I want to round these corners. Again, discontinued corner rounder from Stampin' Up. But I just want these corners to be nice and rounded. I don't want too many sharp edges. Let's pop that in properly and do that again. That looks better, sort of. Okay, let me just trim that because that didn't curve as nicely as I would have liked. Okay, so we're going to join that onto there. So I'm going to peel that off. Now I'm going to have 2 pages like this. I'm going to butt those 2 together. And then that's going to go over there like that. So that page is going to open up that way. So we're going to do a second page like that. So we've got that. I'm going to round these, just making sure that is sitting in there nicely. I've got a few corner rounders. This is the only one I could find this morning. I think my other ones could have been a little bit better, but that'll do. That's better. And then after we've done all this, we're going to work out what order we're going to pop these into. So they're the only 2 pages that I'd like to make, or make sure that that's what I'm doing. Because I wanted to make them smaller and everything. So these are the main ones I wanted to do before I put them in the book. The other pages I can build up while I'm in the book. But so what I want to do now is work out how we're going to do this. So I don't want this to be my first page. That can be my first page and then my second page, third page, and then that one, and maybe that one. So that's the order. So this is going to open up. That's going to be the first page. So it's what do I want to pop on here? That's going to open that way. And that's going to be my other page. I think I want to keep that one blank for the moment. I could add a pocket along the bottom there. You've got to think about what you're going to add, because you don't want, I've allowed 1/2 inch between each page, but we don't want it to become too bulky, otherwise it becomes very, very thick. Now with the pocket page, what I've done is I've cut a piece the same width as my page, and I've allowed an extra inch, which is giving me an extra 1/2 inch on either side. I've got my depth I wanted my pocket, and then I've allowed an extra 1/2 inch on the bottom. So I'm going to pop some tear and tape along those score lines there. Now with books like this, it's sort of sometimes you're actually thinking it as you're making it, so things will sort of change. It's like, you know, you've got to keep have an idea of what you want to do, but be prepared to change some of those ideas if need be. Now you could also use some of the dies we've got to give you scalloped edges and so forth, but this is more than 6 inches and our dies are only 6 inches across, so I've decided to leave it fairly plain and just use the corner rounder. Just because it'd be a lot of fiddling, or if you had an album slightly narrower, you could use some of our dies which are more catered towards about 5.5 inches in width, I think, or they're just on 6, whereas this is just that little bit bigger. Now I've popped my tape in there, I want to cut off again, just angle those tabs at the top there, but I also need to remove all of this area here. And this is one of the reasons why I like to put my tear and tape on first, is so then I can just cut that whole angle off, and I'm not going to have any tearing tape sticking out past. Now when you do that, just fold those up, and they are overlapping a little bit, so I'm just going to cut just that little bit more off each one because I don't want too much bulk in there. Check that side. I'm going to do the same on that, so I'm just going to take just a little bit more of an angle off there and off that one as well. So this is my page for this one here. Whoops, and I have just realized I've put all of that adhesive on the wrong side. That's okay. We're just going to turn that over because we want that adhesive going onto our page. Now I'm just going to pop these two together here. Line up my longest edge first, easiest, and then fold that up and tuck those in. Whoops, that one there is just moved. See if I can pull that apart without ruining my page too much. That's better. So there's our pocket there. Now when I come to put designer series paper, I usually trim it down to 1/4 of an inch smaller, and I will slip it underneath that pocket. So let's just have a look where I can find. So if this is my designer series paper, it's going to be cut a little bit smaller and it'll slip right in, but I'll show you that once we get to doing that. So there's I want my page 1 to be blank there because I don't know yet what I want to pop onto that. That's page, so that's the back side of page 1. So if we've got page 1, page 2, page 3, and turn that over. Then I've got a blank pocket to go there, 3, 4. So I've got, this is the one that I've cut to go as a tab there. Now with this one here, I've cut it 4.5 inches that way and 5 inches that way, and I've got a tab on the top which is 1/2 inch. So again, what we're going to do is we're going to get our tear and tape. Just move this out of the road, pop that along that score line. And trim that back. Now, because I've done this as quite a wide one, I want to centralize it in here. So I'm just going to look for my little ruler, and I'm roughly going to put that about that's where I really want it to go. So there's my other page. Burnish that down as well. That will eventually get covered up because, again, when we put something like this in, that's going to cover that. And because it's black, it'll actually blend into each other quite well. So we've got that page, we've got that page, turn it over again. Then we have this one here. So again, we could put a pocket on there if we wanted to. And I have got another one here, but this time I thought my pocket is going to go on the side there. So again, it's the same as the other pocket that we've done. So this time though, I've got my pocket depth is 4.5 inches, added an extra 1/2 inch on either end, which makes it 5 inches. And then I've got a 2-inch wide pocket. Yep, 2-inch wide, and I've only added 1/2 inch. This is really good. You can use up all your scraps and everything for cutting out the rest of the cardstock. You can use all your scraps for making these little pockets and bits and pieces to go in there. Again, just grab my tear and tape. Now, in these sort of albums, if you had an album going in the other direction, like as a portrait, this one's a landscape style album. If you had a portrait style or even a square, you could do a waterfall inside it to add more like waterfall layers of pages, so you can add photos onto those. I will show you next week an album. I'll try to remember to put it out, that I've done ages ago off a tutorial that I watched, and it's got like waterfalls all down one side, and really works out with the old vintage square photos. It looks great. Trim those down that little bit more. A bit stuck all over me. And I find the hardest thing with these albums, it's easy to make it up and get to this point. The hardest part I find is actually how I'm going to decorate it. You know, where do you use your papers? How do you use your papers? Where is your photos going to go? You can spend a lot of time fiddling around with that. What I want to try to do today is just get these pages made up and into an album and get them attached into the album so you can see how this all works together. So we've got that to there, then we've got that one, and that one's going to close up onto that. We've got our last page here. I just want to have just another quick flick through, because I've got a blank page there, and I've got that with a pocket on that side. But this one opening up that way, and then I've got a blank there. Got this one opening that way, and I've got a pocket there. I've got this one opening that way, so I'm now starting to repeat it, and I've got that one there. And then I've got this pocket to go on here. So I'm going to put a second one in here. Okay. Put those angles off again. And that is going to go on there. So there, for the moment, are all our pages for the album. So let's get them into this album, and then it'll start really looking like a book. So I'm going to start with my back page first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just pull this tab down and fold that at an angle. So I'm just taking the backings off my tear and tape, but I'm not taking it all the way down, and I just want to pop them at an angle, just like that. Then I'm going to take this page here, and I'm going to slip that over the top, position that where I want it to go. You want to get it nice and close to the bottom as there as possible, but then just pull it out a little bit, just so then you've got movement. But it's only like a fractionally up. And I'm going to take, whoops, that didn't work. I'll come back to that one. Let's just take this one here and just gently pull that out and adhere that down. Now this one didn't come out properly, so I'm just going to get my take a pick tool. Just see if I can pull the rest of that out just like that. You want to make sure that those pages are in nice and square on that hinged area, because otherwise if it doesn't, it's going to be a little bit, which is what mine has done. I don't want to pull that up too much, but we want that to be as square as possible. Just a little bit out. And that's in here now, so I can't really move that. But you really want to try to make sure that that is nice and square on there. I'm actually just going to burnish that down. It's not too bad. Okay, so here's our second one. So that one there, I want that opening that way. Oops, I want that to fold back in there. Grab my page. I'm going to separate that pocket a bit by squeezing it. Push that down. Oops, it just flipped off. I'm going to turn this around so if I can get a better view of it. Even that up on there. Just have a little bit up off that hinged area. Stick that down. Gently pull that out. Same on that side. That a good burnish down. There's the second one of our pages. Okay, so this is our next page here, and we're going to pop that on that way. Turned out. Okay, let's line it up. Pull that one out. It's all looking pretty good. Now we've got this next page. It's going to go in that way. Now, as I said last week, this is probably one of the hardest. Whoops, I want that to fold the opposite direction. That one to fold the opposite direction. Probably one of the hardest styles of these sort of books to make. There are a lot easier ones. If you want to learn a few others that I have made in the past, I can show you. I'm quite happy to go through this with you. And so I find these quite enjoyable to make. A lot of thought and everything has to go into it, but it's just if you're making it for somebody, it's can be a lot of fun. I must admit, though, out of probably the 4 or 5 of these I have made, I've only got one that I've kept for myself, and even this one is going to be a gift. So now I've just got to make sure that that opens that way, because I've got my book upside down at the moment. Line that up. So let's just go through it and just give this all a good burnish down both sides. Now you could do gatefolds on these pages. You could have magnet closures on some of these pages. It's really up to you. So let's have a quick look. So here's our album. So this one here I've left blank for the moment because I don't know what I want to do, but we are going to slip tag in there. And that fits in there nicely. This one here, we've got a pocket here, so we could add things into that pocket. This side here is going to fold out. We can pop another tag in there. So this page here, I've left blank for the moment, so I could add something onto there if I want to. And I've got this one here, it's going to lift up like that. And we're going to add another tag in there. That's one there is a little bit tight. It's amazing. Sometimes these can become a little bit tighter with the more that you add on them. So just be aware you might need to trim these tags down a little bit by the time you start adding a bit extra. And then we've got that one there's quite tight. And then we've got a little pocket here that we could add bits and pieces in there, with another one that opens out on that side. Add another tag. Into there like that. I've got this one here, which is going to open up, and a tag here. And then on the back, I've left it blank for the moment as well. So with some of the ones like this one here, you could add, before you start decorating it, you could add a magnet here and a magnet there. You could do that, so then that closes up nicely. You could add something else on this side. Just remember, you've only got half an inch in here, so the more you add in here, the less room you're going to have here. So at the moment, I've left quite a bit of room in there, so I can add more things if I wanted to. If you're adding anything that's bulky, like flowers or lots of layers, you want to be very aware that of what you've got room here, because the more you add in here, the more your album cover is going to start going outwards. So you could do that. You could have this as a gatefold, whether you're going gatefold that way and have the two little circles on either side and a bit of thread that goes around to close them up. If it was a bigger album, you could put belly bands in here to hold things in. There's lots and lots of things. It just all depends on the size of your album. So this one here, you can open up this way. You could do it where you have more like sort of double openings, so you could have another one of these here on this side here, so it can fold in. That one could fold in. You could have them coming from the top and bottom, folding all in onto themselves. There's lots here you could do. So the more you add into it, the more photos you may have to find, the more decorating you have to do. So just think about what you want to do. So there's a pocket on that side. Then we've got this one here, which is a tag that opens up. You've got your one that's in there. This side opens up, and then you've got another pocket there, and again blank. So this week I'm going to start looking at how I'm going to decorate this. And next week, I hope you can join me as I finish decorating it and get it all nice and completed. May even get some photos chosen. Yeah, there is a lot of work in it, Glenda, but it is fun. I find this actually quite enjoyable. I mean, it's this part I really enjoy. When it gets to the next part, the decorating, I love that, but it can be the part that I struggle the most on, because then I've got to work out what papers are going to fit, what photos. I mean, I've done a few of these and I've sold them, so I haven't had to worry about photos, but it's then sort of working out, okay, how the photos are going to fit in, if you're going to put an opening here or a closure there. You know, are the magnets going to interfere if you're going to use magnets? There's lots of things that you've got to consider when making some of these albums. So I mean, even with this page here, I could trim that off a little bit smaller if I hadn't have already glued those together, like what we did with this one here. And actually, I will go around and round all these corners as well. And plus, I will go and round the corners on my tags that I've put in there as well, which will make it a lot easier to put in. It was something I've just forgotten to do. But just so it's all cohesive, I will corner around nearly everything that goes in here. But I hope you've enjoyed this, watching this up to here. I hope you can join me again next week, as either I'll have it already completely decorated or just the last finishing touches to go, because it will take a while to decorate a whole album, so I'm not going to go through it with you page by page. So I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope you'll come back and join me again next week. Just something a little bit different to just cards. And as I said before, great way to use up some of those leftover designer series papers that we've all got hiding. Well, I've got hiding under my desk. But this is just a great way of doing it. And if you really like this, I've got another album idea, which is a lot simpler and easier to make as well. So, but now I've got to work out what to do with these edges that have just gone a little bit funny. But I'll work that out, and I'll show you next week. Anyway, take care. Have a lovely week. Enjoy your weekend. Stay warm. And I'll see you all later. And thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate it. Bye for now.